A couple days into ownership and I already have come up with a how-to tutorial video. Today I will cover my emergency toolkit for the Fisker Ocean. It will provide the tools needed to access the underhood area of the car, since there is currently an issue with the 12-volt battery draining due to not getting sufficient charging from the high voltage battery pack. This is supposed to be solved in coming over-the-air updates. But I think it's a good idea to have this toolkit just in case anytime you need to open the hood. The Ocean is different than a lot of cars in that you can't pop a button or a lever or latch to open the hood from inside the car. You need to remove the service lid, a plastic trim piece that goes between the light bar above it and the bumper below it. You need to use a plastic pry bar, like one of these, to loosen the clips that hold it in place. With the service lid out of the way, you also need to remove two bolts that keep the hood shut. Those are located by these two arrows here. Once those are removed, you have access to under the hood. If the car has a dead 12-volt battery, the doors will not open, so you cannot store a kit inside the car. That is where we have to be a little creative. Hopefully you have optioned your Ocean to have the full tow package or accessory hitch receiver. I opted for the full tow package. Earlier I mentioned the plastic pry bars. Short or long doesn't matter for what you need them for, but in this video I suggest using the shorter one, or one that is no longer than those parts that are coming up next. Here are the parts needed to remove the two bolts. First is a quick change handle that supports 1/4-inch hex shank drivers. This one has a longer handle, but a short handle version works too. I have links to both kinds in the video description. Next up is the nut driver. There are three things to look for. First, it needs to be a 13mm size. It has to be about 6 inches or 150 millimeters long. And lastly, it needs to have a magnetic tip. This is because the bolt is located deep inside the hood opening and it's possible to drop the bolt inside and not be able to find it. With the magnet, it will stay attached to the nut driver. Here's an example of how to attach it to the handle. Pull back on the quick release mechanism, insert the driver, and release. It is firmly in position. One reason I suggest getting these two parts in a combination is due to the sufficient length to reach the deep-seated bolts in the hood. Pull back on the mechanism to remove the 13mm nut driver. Placing them side by side, they are roughly the same size and fairly compact. This is important later on. We are going to group these three items together. Now you can see why having a shorter pry bar is important. They all need to be about 6 inches or shorter in length. Take a plastic bag. This will keep the items clean and dry, and place the items inside this bag. Then you can fold it over and then place it aside for now. I suggest getting a spare CR2032 battery, which is used by the key fob. If your key fob dies, you can easily use this one to replace the dead one inside. Also, keep it sealed so that it's not exposed to the elements or potential discharging from contact with anything that's conducting or metal. This item is for storing things inside a 2-inch hitch receiver. This one is 3D printed and I purchased it from an Etsy store. There are two holes on the side that match up with the hitch bolt holes on the receiver. Those are used for locking this box inside so it doesn't fall out. Lastly, you'll need a long zip tie. If you have seen my previous projects, I love using these reusable zip ties. Just insert the tail into the head and it's tightly held. They have a release at the head, push this in, and the tail comes back out again. And basically this is how it will work. We're going to be using the zip tie through the two holes and we're going to be connecting it so that it attaches around the metal hitch receiver and it locks into place. We can't use a standard bolt that would go through this opening because the tools that are inside would not be able to fit. Speaking of them now, let's put them inside for a test fit. The plastic bag with the tools should fit completely inside the walls of the plastic box. If they don't, just rearrange the tools until it does fit. Then take the folded up battery box and place it towards the front of the box away from the two holes. And this is how it should look if everything's in place. I am now by the rear bumper area, and this is the hitch receiver cover. It is held in place by clips on the top and by two screws on the bottom. These are captive screws. You just have to give them a half turn to unlock, and they will stay attached to the plastic cover. Now pull the cover from the bottom downward and towards yourself. Then it will snap right out. Place it aside for the next step. Here's a close-up of the hitch receiver. There are two holes a few inches in from the outer 2-inch opening, and this is where we will line up the holes on the hidden hitch box. I tried this a few different ways and came up with this method. You just need a thin, flat screwdriver to help out. Push the long zip tie through the box holes. Go under the tools in the plastic bag or over, it doesn't really matter. On the right side is the head of the zip tie. Place it so that it's just poking out of the hole, and on the other side, take the tail and fold it so that the length of it comes out towards you. Then insert the box into the receiver. Once the holes on the box and the receiver line up, you can use a thin screwdriver to wedge the head out of the hole. Then when you have a grip on it, pull it out a few inches. Now for the other side. Push the tail into the receiver. This should cause it to push out of the hole. Then use the screwdriver to grab the tail and pull it all the way out. With both sides of the zip tie free, you just bend them down and around the hitch receiver itself, insert the tail into the head and pull it so that it's tight. And that's it. The box is now securely fastened to the hitch receiver, but easily removable when needed since the zip tie is reusable. Take the hitch cover and then insert the 3 clips on top, then push it all the way in. It'll snap into place. Turn the 2 screws on the bottom half a turn to lock it into place. And that's it for the cover. Well, I hope this video has been useful to you. Sometimes in an emergency, you will need to open the hood of the car. Anything stored in the car may not be accessible. But using this method, you can store a toolkit and other items as needed. If you don't have a hitch receiver, some other options may be to get a magnetic bag or box and place it somewhere under the body of the car. However, this is not as stable a solution as the one I'm providing here. See the links in the video description for the tools and parts I used in this video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. I will be covering the under hood area, especially concerning the 12-volt battery.